Like, what are you gonna say? Yeah. Like, what are you gonna say? What are you gonna do? How are you gonna react?
Sheer terror. I think I would just start bawling.
Oh my god. I was editing a video yesterday. It's about to come out, and I was dying laughing at like one of the dude's answers. He was just like, now what? Do you have social media?
I do not.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I have a LinkedIn page.
Okay. Okay, because the next question is explain what social media is to you, but tell me why you don't have social media, and also, did you used to have social media? And then okay, so tell me about that whole, like, I'm deciding to leave now.
Yeah, so the last time I had a Facebook was in 2010. So yeah, I had one through high school, tried to keep it up in like my freshman year of college, and just like quickly realized that I really wanted to like stay in touch with my friends from high school. But what I found was that I was just wasting a lot of time when I like should have been studying or doing homework, looking at like pictures of like friends of my friends in their bikinis, like on the beach in Mexico, and feeling like my life was horseshit. And it just like the feeling that I got when I was on Facebook was always like this like deep painful vacuum of just like I am not enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not skinny enough, I don't do enough with my life, my ideas aren't good. Like I just always, Facebook always made me feel less than. So my like packaged answer for why I'm not on social media is that I'm just like not spiritually qualified. Because I think I know there's probably a way to like engage with social media, which in a like way that like fills you up. But for me, it just like wasn't worth figuring out how to do that. And then I think probably in like 2016, 17, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna experiment with Instagram. And so for a good maybe like year, 18 months, Instagram was filling me up, and I was like learning about a bunch of artists that I never would have found otherwise, and like a lot of like social justice thinkers, and like creative folks, and like, you know, getting to like know a different side of my friends than I had before. And so there was like a short period of time where it was working for me, but it eventually like turned into this just like, you know, I would just like lose hours scrolling through pictures, and I was like getting resentful at, you know, people I went to preschool with because you know, it looked like their life was cooler than mine, and I was like, it was like the first time that I recognized that like I can be a really intensely jealous person, actually. So in that way, Instagram was a spiritual teacher for me. But yeah, it like after looking at how much emotional energy I was just like giving to Instagram, it it just made the most sense for me to delete my account. And like learning what to do with my hands in like down to like in like free moments
Mm-hmm.
was like very difficult for a while. I think as a surrogate, I like signed up for a bunch of email newsletters, which just makes me sound like 60 years old. But I'm very happy without social media. But it does. Sometimes I feel like I'm living in a slightly different reality than most of the people around me, just because like I don't know what fucked up thing someone said on Twitter or like any of that. So in a lot of ways, like I have to take people at face value. Like, you know, like the people, like I only know the people in my life based on like what I see and know about them in person, essentially.
Which is kind of like a gift and a curse.
Yeah, I think a lot of times what's been coming up recently is that kind of feels unsafe in a way. Because like I don't know if you know that like you know some public figure said something really transphobic.
Yeah.
And like I don't know you know like what like shitty political things that like one dude that I see sometimes is just like spouting off into the internet, which you know I guess like what's interesting to me about that is that you know decades ago nobody knew that about people, and so like for the majority of human history we've been able to somewhat exist in society without knowing what everybody around us thinks at all times.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so I think the reason why that feels unsafe to me is like really interesting. In that it, you know, in some ways it feels like we're living in some sort of like panopticon. And yeah. So I've kind of been chewing on that.
I feel like it's kind of, I don't know, beautiful though, because so many people put so many false realities on social media that if you are only meeting people face to face, you're seeing the real them.
Yeah.
All the time. So you don't even know, like whether someone has 200 followers or 2 million, when you see them, you see them. Yeah. You don't see all of the fake and extra and filtered, which is kind of cool because, I mean, people do say crazy stuff on social media, but also a lot of people, you know, you think you know somebody through social media and then you see them in person and you're like, oh, like you're a completely different person.
Totally.
So it's just weird. I mean, what do you think that we can do as a generation to reconnect? Like, this is something you do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
And it's rare that I'm, you know, with somebody that doesn't have social media. And I know that a lot of people take breaks. I've taken breaks probably the longest I've done is like a month. Which was hard.
Yeah. I guess to respond to something that you said just then, I think like as trans person, I do like I also know the power of you know the like sense of empowerment that people get when they have the tools to create themselves. You know, so I think like for me personally, like coming to a space where my insides and my outsides match has been really liberating, both when it comes to gender and then also just like trying to be a more honest and authentic person in the world.
Right.
And so like I wouldn't like in whatever ways people like need to do that, I think you know, I would, you know, like all the power to you. I just like know my experience of my experience of social media was not that. It was more me comparing my outsides to other people's outsides.
That's tough.
Always in a negative way, too.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So I just wanted to add that piece. But I guess something that I find really important that I try and focus on is like when I'm with people in person, just like keeping my phone in my pocket. And that's really important for me in relationships, because like I guess with like everybody having the internet accessible to them at all times, it's like you can be physically sharing the same space with someone, but they can just like kind of like dip out into this alternate reality.
Right.
Yeah, so on like my end of the relationship, I find it like, you know, like we made time in our days to like, you know, be in the same space with each other and like connect and interact. So like my for me, like my end of that bargain includes like making sure I'm not like constantly on my phone.
You're trying to be present.
Yeah.
Person.
Yeah. And then I've also had to learn not to get mad at people when they're on their phone the whole time, because like that might not be their end of the bargain, you know.
Right.
It's, you know, we didn't sign a contract
exactly
for this hangout session.
Right.
So yeah. So for me, like learning how to connect better with people has been like I think the biggest parts of it have been like presence and awareness, and also I've found that as I've been more like authentic and vulnerable with folks, that I get more of the same. I think it just builds like a degree of trust. And then I guess the third piece that's been helpful for me is trying to like drop the part of my mind that's like always weaving narratives. I used to love sitting in public and like watching strangers go by and like crafting their life story. And like, you know, like, oh, he's wearing like a dirty pair of like white New Balance sneakers, and like figuring out what that meant, which I think is like a fun creative exercise, but like I just did that all the time. Like and like with people like close to me, far from me, and you know, like I've also spent plenty of time like pretending I'm folks' therapist, which I'm not qualified for and not good at. Those things are probably related. And trying to like set that down has made it a lot easier for me to be in relationship with people. So I'm just like so like trying to like see and accept the truth of people, who they are, the truth of who people are as I can see it in this moment. And like evaluating how much of that I want to be around.
Second to last question.
Yeah.
What's missing?
Right now, can I say two things? Cool. So the two things that feel like they're missing are, I think, the one that's most pressing to me is like having a deeper relationship with my body. I spent a lot of time not in my body, and so there are a couple of like medical interventions that I think are going to be helpful for me being more present in this like meat suit, which my insurance is being a pain in the ass about. And then, and then I think there are like other practices that I'm like playing with to try and be more like physically present, if that makes sense. And then the other thing is like a job that I feel good about. I'm really lucky in that I'm like pretty gainfully employed in the field that I have a degree in. And like the day-to-day of my job is I love a lot. And it's like, and I think like I'm like really valued at the company that I work for, which is like all I feel like wildly grateful for. But I also work in like the chemical industry, and like a lot of what we make is used to make plastic, and so like it's kind of hard to sleep at night. Yeah. So I'm trying to think about how to use my science powers for good. Yeah. And if that's even possible.
It is. I think.
Yeah. And then, it's, for me, it's kind of been, a lot of my self-worth comes from work. Which
me too.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Yeah. It's, so I'm trying to like divest my self-worth and my self-confidence from my employment, and like keep those separated, but like financial stability is like a real thing, and it's important for people. Like it's important for me to feel like financially stable. And so. It's been interesting to like have a conflict between like that and like my big values, and just like seeing how difficult that choice can be. Capitalism sucks.
Yeah, it does. It so does.
Yeah. But yeah, and it's that's like there's a lot of privilege in my life, and so like figuring out my relationship to that is just like there's like a bunch of like stickiness and emotional responses, and there's part of me that wishes that I could be like very cut and dry about it, and like almost like extremist about only engaging in the world in ways that I think are non-harmful, but in a lot of ways like I can't figure out how to do that practically. So finding a balance between like living according to my values, and then like not beating myself up about it the entire time, and also and still finding like joy in things. That's a work in progress.
Sweet. Yeah.